Okay, cool. Mark, again, we've had a little discussion before this started, but again, thank you so much for joining us on the first of the Explore More Sundowner sessions. We're quite excited to have some discussions with our favorite suppliers and partners in South Africa. So, Mark, thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you.
I think, as discussed, we're going to keep it nice and light and informal. Got my favorite glass of red to help us through the rather long discussion we're going to have, a very interesting discussion. So just for everybody's reference, I'm drinking a wine from the Hemel and Ada Valley called Creation. It's my favorite Merlot. And Mark, what you got there, bud?
I've got a beautiful Rubik's Rutherfoord from the Swartland. It's a new, beautiful, not new, but it's up and coming, nice blend. Southern Slopes, it's a Rupert wine, Cape of Good Hope. Absolutely fantastic. It's on you when you're out there at the moment.
Cool, good stuff. Cool. So I think just to kickstart off this little discussion about Gondwana, short background about both of us. Obviously myself and Adam are owners of Explore More Travel, based in Cape Town. We're a tour operator that focus on wine, golf, safari, adventure, and cycling experiences in the southern part of Africa. So, we've been in the tour operating business for many years, and we love what we do. We've got a core team based in Cape Town, and we work with so many great properties based in southern Africa. And I think the main reason for me why I decided to ask Mark to join us to start off this sort of Sundowner session vibe is that, Mark and I have traveled around the world selling South Africa, and we've had a lot of fun and a lot of success during these sales trips. And over the years, we've become good friends, and I absolutely love his properties. So, I think I don't have to talk too much about it. That's why I've got Mark with us today. But Mark, maybe just give us a little background about Gondwana and maybe go way back and tell us how it all began with yourself and Wendy.
You want the mushy version or the not?
No. Let's not go too mushy. Yeah. Although there's a very cool story about how you guys met, and maybe you can just fill people in on that.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Warren. Thanks for having me. It's lovely to hear familiar voices as people arrive. But good evening, everybody. Thanks, Warren.
Cool.
But look, this has been a wonderful journey, and it's a journey that we've been going on for the last 16 years. And it's a journey that started on absolute passion and love, and it's something which I've been looking at ever since I was a kid. I think one of my things my father always said, like when I was at high school and he thought I was studying in my room, he would come out and he'd see me looking at wildlife magazines and looking at buying property at the back of the Farmers Weekly. So this has been something which has really been sort of ingrained in me since a young age. And it was always a dream and always something which we wanted to try and bring to fruition. But it really all started probably in 1997 when I actually got into the industry as a barman. And I started working as a barman in the Starby Sands and made some amazing friends and built some incredible relationships, which allowed me to grow through the industry and get into the wildlife side, into the guiding, and ultimately into the wildlife management side, which led me to, as you all know, a beautiful property called Swallow up in the Kalahari in the Northern Cape. And all the way through, I knew at some stage there was going to be some time that I'd ultimately hopefully be able to have our own property. And it was there where I was fortunate enough to meet my now wife, Wendy. That was, as I said, 16 years ago. It was quite ironic, actually, how we met. She was working for De Beers at the time, and it was coming out on a business trip with a whole lot of business colleagues. And then, of course, the Swallow being owned by the Oppenheimers, there was a link, and they were all coming out to work on to visit the reserve, having done some pretty good diamond sales in the States at the time. And I got a call one night to say, would you come and help guide? Because I was actually working in the wildlife industry, in the wildlife side and wildlife management. We were doing a wild dog release, and it was getting filmed by a TV in a TV series. So we were quite busy, and I spoke to the lodge manager, and I said to the lodge manager, look, I can't do it. I'm too busy. And he said, well, listen, there's 14 women from Manhattan. Now, when you're a 25-year-old living as a bachelor, 60 k's from your closest neighbor, that was a little bit more appealing than having to go and feed wild dogs. So I said, sure. Like, what time do you want me to be there, type thing. And basically, I woke up in the morning quite excited. I'm not sure why, but anyway. And I went to the airport and met the first set of airplanes to come in. It was 2 planes. And the first plane arrived and everything was good. And it was, a lovely group of ladies got off the plane. But as 24-year-old or 25-year-old, the first group of ladies was 45 or 50, which now is very young, as we all know. But I was a little disappointed at that stage. But anyway, I thought it would be a fun weekend. Only to find out that the next plane was arriving, and on that plane was Wendy. And I knew basically then that was it. I was going to marry her, and this was going to be the start of an amazing journey. And we actually only knew each other for a couple of days while being at the reserve. And the whole story started where we started communicating, and literally 6 months later, 4 months later, left her job in Manhattan and flew out to the Kalahari, where we lived for about a year and ultimately brainstormed our dream, which was to be able to have our own game reserve. And, I always had this idea of being somewhere remote. And I think the wonderful thing about our combination that we've had over the years is that she's always embraced the ideas, but has made them more real and quite realistic. So when I was looking at places in the middle of absolute nowhere, she was like, this is a great idea, but how the hell are people going to get there? And so we started looking around, and at that stage, a lot of the game reserves had developed in the Eastern Cape and the West, in Mpumalanga, Limpopo. But the one area that really hadn't developed and there was huge potential was the Western Cape. So we started looking in that Western Cape area, and we thought at that stage, because it was more what I was sort of familiar with from a vegetation point of view, was the Klein Karoo area and, areas around, just over the Swartberg. And we got then wind of a property that was available for sale just outside Mossel Bay. And I remember arriving to look at this property and just thinking how foreign it was. And it wasn't, I was trying to conceptualize wildlife in this fynbos, and it was wasn't really working for me because, I was from the Lowveld and worked in the Kalahari, and Wendy kept saying, but it's just so beautiful, it's just so magnificent, and it's something different. And having spent a few days there, it started to sort of percolate, and all of a sudden this kind of picture in our minds evolved of something completely unique and completely different. We then sort of thought,
I'll just stop you there quickly, Mark, because you know what the most amazing thing is? It is so different. When you drive up that dirt road, it's, you don't really know what to expect because you're in the Western Cape, and I've been to the other reserves that are in the Western Cape, and so you kind of have an idea of what it's going to look like, but it is so different. And the fact that the ocean is only half an hour away, and you've got that beautiful backdrop of the mountains. It's really special, and it certainly must have caught your eye for sure.
Exactly, Warren. I think that's what it was about. It was, and then of course that together with its location from Cape Town and everything, and it just started making sense. And it was very funny. It just took us a little bit of time to get my head around it, and then all the pieces just started falling together. And I tell you what, it's just been what really is now what was so novel and what was so sort of almost not strange in the beginning has become what's so unique and kind of identified it for what it is today. So that was 16 years ago, and it was very farmy, and it was, so we had a lot of work to do, and it's just taken a lot of time and patience. And, I've just literally, I got back from there about an hour ago today. And I suppose, what's going on around the world makes you look at things slightly differently. And I drove in today, and the sun was coming up and the mist was there. And it really has just matured into this incredible, it was sort of this little duckling, and it's just matured into this beautiful thing at the moment. So I think really it's just been a journey. We lived there for 7 years on the property. We were heavily involved in the development and running of the lodge at the time. And now we've got the most, and you've met a lot of them, Warren, the most magnificent team on the ground, spread and also all around the country, from Cape Town all the way up, to the reserve and us, and the small office here at Neisner. So it's just, it really is a very special place, now surrounded and filled by some incredible people as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think your team are really what makes the business what it is actually, and I'm very, very blessed to have spent many nights on the reserve, and I've tried all the accommodations, and we've done the eco experience with our team, and then end of last year did the Pioneer Trail with some friends of mine. So I've touched across all the bases, and it's like coming home for me too. And one of the bonuses about being in this industry is that you are able to develop relationships with people that have just unbelievable vision, I think, and I can't even imagine just walking up to a property and sitting at the top of the hill and going, do you know what? I think we could probably put, well, we call it Quena now, but imagine standing there in the day and going, this could work. And how about a swimming pool right there? And then to see it, come to fruition, and it's really matured, especially with the Fynbos in that specific part of the reserve. It's just spectacular. So yeah, I take my hat off to you guys, and it's so cool working with.
It's a real privilege, and not many times do you have in your life it's like a real open canvas of what you can do. And I think and we've just loved every moment of it. And there's been some scary times and it's challenging times, but as it's evolved and developed and good, we've just felt very privileged to have had the opportunity to be able to develop it from scratch.
Yeah. Well, we're going through a scary time at the moment, but I don't want to talk about it just yet. We'll leave it for just now, talking about the great big elephant in the room, COVID-19. What an absolute mess, but we'll touch base on it just now. Just for people that maybe don't know Gondwana as well as we do, just running through your different product offerings on the reserve.
So in our original product offerings was our beautiful lodge, Quena, which is a 14-bedroom lodge accompanied by a beautiful dining room, lounge, bar area. It's absolutely exquisite. We love it. It's been developed in this cute sort of koi sand feel. It's really got a lovely feel. And affiliated to the Quena Lodge is our famous villas. Both the famous villas and the bush villas, and those are really absolutely perfectly created and situated for families. So I think one of the big things that we've always been able to do is be able to cater for families in these villas. We've got the 2, 3, and 4-bedroom villas, and then Quena then are your more traditional style lodge type accommodation. But over the years, we've really wanted to add to that, and I think we've wanted to select certain products that match or answer questions to how the tourism product has or how tourism and tourism needs have developed over the years. So we've often followed trends. And Caroline, Caroline, and I know she's on the call at the moment, we always follow things. What are people wanting? What are people needing? And I think that's what's also sort of defined what Gondwana has been over the years. We've been able to either be as a leader of those trends, or at least answer to some of those trends. And that has very much been around exclusivity. It's been around experience. It's been around activity and contribution at some level. So because of that, we've developed a beautiful eco camp. And that, as you've been there, that is all around people becoming game rangers for the duration of the time that they are on the reserve. And not often do you get to be able to stay in a reserve like that and also experience sort of behind the scenes. And that's very much what Eco Camp is all about. It's absolutely gorgeous for those 5 tented camps run by a small team. And, it's very special. Ulabisi, sort of the gem of Gondwana. And that really is designed perfectly for your exclusive use, private chef, private butler, private game ranger. And it fits really well. The type of person that stays there is either somebody that's wanting that type of accommodation that will all the way through their stay, or whether it's somebody who's celebrating an anniversary or a birthday or something like that, and they want it as a unique experience. So we absolutely, Ulabisi is very, very special indeed. Yeah. And then, of course, our latest one is the Pioneer Trail. Having launched that last year, you were one of our pioneers, and it really is a very, very, very special product. And that's the opportunity to be able to hike through a Big 5 property with a kind of epitome of a slack packing experience. And we are very excited about the product. It's done incredibly well in the short duration of time that it's been there, but it really does provide an intimate experience for people who are wanting to remain active, people that are wanting to get out and see it in a different way. You know, yes, we are walking through a big five environment, but it's not about the big five. It's all about the little things. It's about seeing, you know, about the insects and seeing the the butcher bird hanging his worms on the tree, and you know, you just see it from a completely different level. And as we were saying earlier, you know, the Gondwana is so unique in its beauty with regards to the floral side of things. You know, once somebody explained it to me as a tapestry of colors, and that's exactly what it is. And while you're in a vehicle, you do get to experience that, and you do get to see the bigger picture. But on foot, when you've got those quiet moments and you're walking along, you just see things which nobody else can see. So it's a very, very special new product indeed, and done so well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Pioneer Trail for myself and my friends that enjoyed it last year was truly spectacular. And I mean, even when there were some quiet patches, it wasn't that quiet because we had a lot of people huffing and puffing up the hills and carrying their slack packs. And also, you never know, you know, what's around the corner. So, you know, yes, it was the most relaxing experience because we all love being in the bush and there's no cell phones and there's no nonsense, and it's just it's as pure as a travel experience can get, in my opinion. But you never know what's around the corner, and that is quite exciting. You know, we had some amazing experiences, and thankfully we didn't have too many close encounters, which I was a bit worried about. But we had one amazing experience. First night, 4 a.m, male lion walking past our camp, and the noise was just incredible, and it woke even the deepest sleepers. It was amazing, and we're still talking about that now because everybody thought that it couldn't have been real. You know, there's no ways. Meanwhile, absolutely real, 100%. And it's something that we're so thankful to have experienced. Even just the noise, you know, you can't see the lion in the middle of the night, but the noise was amazing. So that was really special. And I think I highly recommend Pioneer Trail. You know, get a couple of friends out there and do something really different. There's not a walking experience like that in the Western Cape. And I think it's going to do really well in the future. So, yeah, hats off to you and your team for really putting that together. The accommodation, I think, is unbelievable. It's tented, but it most certainly is luxury. So, yeah, we thoroughly enjoyed it. And just another quick one while we're talking about the camps, I meant to stop you just with regards to Eco Camp. And yes, we took our golf team there for a getaway. And I thought also that was something really, really special. And to get out and actually be a ranger for a few days was so cool. Because generally when you go on a safari experience, you're in a vehicle listening to a guide, and you get to actually visually see encounters, and it's fantastic. But to get out on foot and do what they do, even if it's walking fences or in our case, chopping down the wattle, it was a cool experience. You know, we really liked it. And putting the cameras out at night and then waking up early, going to check the cameras the next morning to see if you did happen to, you know, get a cat on video was something quite special. So I think, yeah, it's good to have different types of product like that all on one reserve. So very cool.
I know that, you know, people do get to experience things. I think the biggest thing we wanted to do, we've always wanted to say that we wanted to be authentic. And that was the script from the beginning. So it wasn't just to say, okay, you're going to come out and do this. The Eco Camp actually provides a very important role to the Gondwana Conservation Department. So in the beginning of the year, we say, all right, these are the projects that the Eco Camp is going to contribute to our annual report, which we have to submit to the department every year. So it's genuine conservation work. So it's also, you know, somebody laughed at me, and, you know, we arrived, I was driving around showing some people around the property, and they came across all these eco campers frantically hacking at black wattle, the alien trees, cutting them all down, and they were having a great time. And, you know, I chatted to them and asked how things were going, and then we drove away, and the guy looked at me and said, "She's Rutherfoord, that is the best business model I've ever seen in my life. You know, you got guys paying to come and cut." But the reality is, people are doing genuine work, and they absolutely love it, and they really feel like they've contributed. It's very rewarding. And people can also follow the work that they're doing by us making their work public through the reports that we do. So it's a fun product, and it's one that we really want to keep on seeing growing.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I agree. So I think just to touch base back on the COVID-19 story, obviously it's everybody's talking about it, and it's been quite a disaster, especially in terms of tourism and hospitality industry. I think you're the same as Adam and I. We're generally positive people, so we'll do our best to really stay as positive through the next couple of months as possible. One interesting thing I think from COVID and an environmental side is that we're seeing some amazing recovery in certain parts of the world from an environmental side. Some incredible sightings in the Western Cape. I mean, there was leopard sightings in the Hermanus Valley, leopard sightings in the Cederberg, in Franschhoek. Like, that's just amazing. And it really boils down to the lack of people on the roads and the lack of movement and noise. So anything interesting happening at Gondwana? Have you seen some movement or?
Yeah, listen, the game is one of the things that we've always wanted to, ensure that the game has never been disturbed by the tourism activity. So yes, there are going to be, there are vehicles around, but the way that our guides act and the way that they behave with guests in the vehicle is of little disturbance as possible. That's something we've always wanted to enforce throughout the guest experience. So in that sense, I think the game has, it does seem to, it's almost this incredible sort of sense of peace across the property at the moment. There is this amazing feeling. We are seeing the security, of course, based on the reserve. All our essential services guys are there. The anti-poaching guys are there.
Yeah.
And they are driving, and they are seeing some amazing things, but also with less eyes. Normally our guests are seeing the incredible things like the caracal at night or the civets and the genets. So they are, those experiences are always there. But, I think we really pride our guides on how they approach game and so on, and to make it as less impactful as possible. But in saying that, I do feel like certain animals that have got a different intellect, animals like elephant and so on, they have been, interestingly, a lot more interested in the lodge over this period of time than ever before. So they're coming now, whether it's not because they aren't, we actually had to get guides sleeping there because they started coming in and coming right up to the place and the lodges and sniffing around. It was this sort of almost like this little bit of interest. Maybe they've never had the opportunity to do it before while guests have been there. But of all the animals that have shown a variation in their behavior, I would definitely say the elephant have changed their behavior. I think they're almost craving a bit of attention. It is a very strange feeling. That's just a gut feel. But it's been wonderful to see that. And as I said, being on the reserve, we've had a big flourish of youngsters having come through the summer. The impala are rutting again. It is a shame that guests are probably missing one of the best months of the year on Gondwana. We always say when we're on our sales trips, May is one of the best kept secrets. And I think to myself, am I sort of making that up in my mind? And being the last few days, May has just been absolutely unbelievable. And so I really do believe it's a good kept secret. But the team are doing an amazing job on the reserve. They're looking after it. Gondwana is, because of the wildlife side, the anti-poaching, animal welfare, we are regarded as an essential service. So there are quite a few opportunities for staff that are still running on the reserve. Of course, the whole lodge side of things is closed, and that was quite emotional to go and see a few weeks ago, to arrive at the lodge and just see the sort of magnificent being of this lodge, and there being absolutely nobody there. That was quite a moment for me. But yeah, let's hope that that's only short.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it the other day. When do hotels or reserves close? Well, they don't.
They don't. No. And particularly lodges, huh? I mean, in game reserves. We had the whole campaign which we put onto social media. Wildlife don't lock down, and they don't. So it is a whole essential part of what's going on, and we have to maintain it. We have to look after the livelihoods of these animals. We are their custodians, and we are the ones that are responsible for doing it. And we need to continue honoring our obligation to be able to do so. So it's a big thing, and it's a challenge that I know many reserves around the country are feeling. I think it's particularly heavy for independent private reserves like ourselves, that we are solely responsible for the wildlife, looking after the wildlife in our property. But it's our responsibility, and we have to maintain it. So I tell you, our team have been fantastic, and we are incredibly proud of what the guys have done. And I think they've themselves have felt privileged to have experienced the reserve in that capacity, where they're there alone. And you know, they sort of been, the reason why they're there is that they are seen to be essential, and it's been great to see. We honor those guys. It's great.
Well, if we'd known we were going to be like 6 weeks or however long we've been in lockdown, I promise you, I think we would have been in a car and headed to Gondwana. You wouldn't have had many guests just hanging out by the pool. It's been quite scary, and I think also just from a weather point of view in Cape Town, it's been the most incredible April and May. I mean, it's like every morning we wake up and it's just, we go into the webcams and there's just surf firing in Cape Town. The weather's been awesome. The wind has just disappeared. And unfortunately, we're sitting around going, oh, you know, we'd love to get out into the forests or go for a surf or just go for a walk with our families on the beach, and it's just not possible at the moment. So, you know, interesting times to live in, and I'm a firm believer in that. You know, eventually we're going to look back on this and go, wow, you know, that was crazy, and hopefully we can learn a few things from it too. You know.
Yeah, agreed.
So, just a quick one. I'm going to ask all the guys that have joined us for this discussion, just to, if they do have any questions for Mark about the reserve or anything about, you know, just the tourism industry, hospitality industry in general, just pop us a question. I've got the chat sort of tab open on the side. So yeah, send us a question. Mark, I wanted to ask you about the Gondwana Conservation Fund. Just quickly, maybe you can let everybody know what that's about.
So yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, that's a real passion of mine and something which we wanted to grow over the years, and it really started to find its feet. And one of my biggest hopes is that the current world situation doesn't slow that down. But it's a foundation that we founded on the reserve about 4.5 years ago, probably almost closer to 5 now, where we really wanted to look at how Gondwana could contribute at some level. And I talk about conservation and talk about modern day conservation, and you know, conservation has changed over the years to what I define as modern day conservation. And that's where, you know, in the old days, people used to look at conservation or conserving an area inside a fence line. It was restricted to what was inside there. They sort of discarded what was outside it. They looked in there and they wanted to protect that. Okay. And one of the things that we really wanted to do, and how things have changed, is to look outside of it and say, how far can this fenced or this protected area benefit the people on its periphery? And by doing that, what it does is it reduces potential conflict, it reduces potential poaching, because if people can see that protected area as valuable to themselves for whatever reason, whether it be through jobs or through education or through a supply chain of some sort, then they themselves are going to want to protect it. So that has been my philosophy for years. And it was, while we were developing the business and trying to get it up and running, it was hard to sort of focus on those things. But it was, to me, it was one of the most important things to try and achieve. And as Gondwana evolved over the last 4 or 5 years, we were able to put focus onto that. So we decided to find the best impact we could have was through kids' education. And currently we doing multiple levels of education. We do about 300 children a year that come through and participate in conservation days on the reserve, where we teach them not just about conservation, but also conservation as a career. Out of that group of kids, we then select a small group who come and actually spend a weekend on the reserve, or weekends on the reserve in our eco camp. And we just give them a much deeper understanding about conservation, and they participate at different levels. And that's been a really, you know, amazing experience, and something which has changed their lives, our lives forever. And then through that, as we've nurtured these children, then we've now recently launched our tertiary education fund through the foundation, where we've now offered our first university bursary to a candidate to go through currently a university degree in conservation, but we are looking at expanding that over time. One of the other things we do through the foundation is the World Rhino Day. We've had kids out, 180 to 200 children a year for World Rhino Day. So that really has been, to me, the heart of the fund. And then there's also a focus on endangered species, both from a fauna and flora, so wildlife and flowers. And we really focused on rhino. We've done a lot of, and it's not just the rhino itself, but the protection of rhino. So trained numerous individuals in protecting rhino. We've given community members training in anti-poaching, counterinsurgents, dog training. And then the foundation also owns rhino. We brought them in from areas that have been either poached. We just had the most wonderful story this week of a rhino that lost its partner, lost its calf to poaching. We relocated it from the Eastern Cape to Gondwana, and it actually today's Monday, so Friday, it was seen to with its first calf, which was quite an emotional experience. So that was absolutely wonderful. This thing, all we could see was its ears sticking out of the grass. It was so tiny.
Dude, that's awesome.
So that was fun. And really rewarding for the charity to be able to do that. So it's a real special part. It's very close to who we are, and we define ourselves as a business, and we look forward to that growing. And it really has taken a lot of traction over the last 18 months.
That's cool. I think, listen, as entrepreneurs in South Africa, we have a very good opportunity to help people with education now. And if we can do that, fantastic. So I commend you guys. I think the Gondwana Conservation Fund is a fantastic platform to do that, and it's something that I think we should be pushing as well. When we go on these sales trips. So, cool. A couple of questions for you. Got a message from Billy Ward and Charlie Burman, basically just asking about any opportunities for wildlife training. Perhaps field guide, eco training, that sort of thing. And I think there is definitely an opportunity there. Is it something that you'll look at from someone off the road, or is there some sort of opportunity for people to do courses through Gondwana?
So currently we haven't looked at guide training or anything like that yet, but the training that we have really focused on has been through the foundation to training of anti-poaching teams and protective teams. So that's where our focus has been. Our hope and our goal is to be able to develop that training side of things. So the answer currently is no, we don't. We haven't offered that. We do offer multiple internships through the reserve. Every year we've offered internships to individuals who come particularly through Technicons, who are doing their third year of training, whether it be through the hospitality industry or through the conservation side. So we've committed to that. We're part of organizations, and we've seen wonderful, rewards and of people that have been successful, 3-4 years later, having done their internship with Gondwana.
Cool. Caroline's mentioned your route to table concept. What's that all about?
That's another, that's something else that has just been absolute passion of ours and something which has really grown. And ironically, you got to look at the silver lining. One of the things that has sort of come out of this whole disaster with COVID-19 is to look at how can we establish certain things that have sort of not, I wouldn't say been on the pipeline, but have been there to be able to develop. So we have started and we continue to develop our route to table concept. Caroline, you are letting the cat out of the bag here. But it's what we're looking at doing, and we've actually started. We're very, very excited by this. Is that we are starting to produce our own grass-fed beef on the family farms, and we're developing a community garden on Gondwana where the community are producing their own vegetables and will benefit from training from that. Gondwana has committed to purchasing those vegetables and that stock from the community, and ultimately the beef that we produce, the vegetables and all that is produced from the community will be what our guests are going to be enjoying. We are very excited about it. We are working together. We've got a wonderful new chef. He's been with us from December. Absolutely incredible. He's completely embraced the concept behind this. We are still developing it. We're still a little ways away from it, but this group will be the first to know when it comes to fruition.
Cool.
But it's a very exciting concept, and it's one, again, that's all about empowering. And I think we talk about trends, Warren. We spoke about trends around what people wanting to be active, people wanting to do things. One of the big things is ensuring that the community is, the trends are people benefiting from this, are the community benefiting from the product, and is it healthy? Is it open? And it's even going to be more so now with the opening after COVID. And we're very excited by our whole route to table concept. So we'll keep you posted.
Cool. Are you guys worried about lockdown, poaching during lockdown?
It has been. I'm very involved in the sort of wildlife industry forum. There's a group of guys, like-minded individuals, and we keep very close track on reserves around the country, Southern Africa, even Africa, on what impact is poaching happening? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Unanimously, touch wood, let's not jinx ourselves, there has been a decrease in poaching over this period of time. And I think a lot of it's got to do with the shutdown of the ports. People can't get merchandise in and out of the country. And something that was released recently, that April was the first month in, I think, 7, 8, 9 years in the Kruger Park history that there wasn't a confirmed poaching incident that happened.
Sure.
So that's good news. So we are seeing that. We are, however, concerned about things like subsistence poaching as people become hungry as a result of COVID-19, jobs losses. That subsistence poaching, not just on Gondwana, but throughout the country, is going to start increasing. So the types of things that our anti-poaching units are looking at now are different. They're now focusing on small things versus the more sort of commercial poaching of rhino and so on. So that has been the result, and we are relieved that rhino, I think, has taken a bit of a breather during the period.
Definitely, us too. Adams asked, which wild animal besides the rhino is the most difficult to have on the reserve?
Which wild animal besides the rhino?
I mean, I know like you haven't had lion escape, but there is always a chance that something like that happens. Or is it a bigger animal like the elephant?
No, I would say the one that sort of keeps me awake at night is probably the lion. I think they're the ones that will always create the greatest concern, and that ironically, they're the ones that pose the least threat, and I know when you were on the trail, the animals that guys are more worried, the guides are more worried about are animals like your buffalo and your hippopotamus. Those are the animals that ultimately there's a concern of from a safety perspective. But lion have the stigma. And so, yes, I would say the hardest one to manage is lion. They pick up funny habits. About 4 months before lockdown, we started finding these issues on our fence that were quite unusual. And that was because the lion started picking up behavior of making kills up against the fence of the animal. So, of course, when you've got the impact of the animal together with the impact of the lion, you're going to end up with a hole in the fence. You just kind of hope that the lion doesn't end up going through the hole. So, these are the things. But, you've got cattle on our boundaries, sheep on our boundaries, communities in the area. So, so I would say they probably are the ones that keep me up at night. But we've got a good team, and, we have to walk our fence on a daily basis, not the whole fence. We do portions. It takes us a full week to walk our fence, but that doesn't stop. We continue with doing it.
Cool. Luda from Sweden, he's just checking in on his favorite animal at Gondwana. It's the big king male lion. All good with him? Happy days?
He's the best father in the world. He's produced, I reckon, and I'm being dead honest, I think he's probably one of the most photographed lions in South Africa. I promise you, absolutely. If I look at the number of guests that come through Gondwana, the fact that he's been with us for so long, he's absolutely iconic, and he's a very, very special lion to not just our family, but to the whole Gondwana community. And I think he is privileged. He's made people very privileged that have been to Gondwana to be able to experience such a magnificent. I was actually chatting on the phone yesterday to the CEO of the Game Rangers Association of Africa. So this is not game rangers as in guides, but as in game rangers who protect rhino and so on around Africa. And we were chatting, and he had the privilege of seeing our big male lion a couple of years ago, and he said to me on the phone, he said, "Still, Mark, I still think that's probably the most magnificent lion I've ever seen in Africa," and it's true. So Ludo, you 100% there, man.
Yeah, he's an amazing lion. Wow. A message from one of our UK operators, Chris. When does Gondwana expect to open this year? What is your prediction, Mark? What are you thinking, bud?
It's hard. It's a moving target, isn't it? I think the biggest challenge, and it's been through the South African level system that's been introduced as a reintroduction out of lockdown. I'm sure many of you are aware of it, but we've got 5 levels in our that have been classified. Business, 5 being lockdown, 1 being pretty much open trade, and business tourism is open from level 2, and general tourism is open from level 1. So that's concerning. We're very much at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to that. We don't even know yet really how long level 4 is going to continue for. I think once we understand level 4, it might give us an idea of how long these phases are. The whole idea behind the lockdown, as I'm sure many of you are aware, it's not the lockdown, the leveled approach, is that it can be staggered. So certain parts of the country can be on different levels at different times. So that, that's different. We gearing up. We're hoping that we're going to be seeing a business domestic travel starting in the 3rd quarter. We really feel that would be a wonderful target. And then hopefully with international travel coming in towards the 4th quarter of the year. They are a different story. I know the webinars that we had with South African tourism do talk a different story, but it's difficult, and it's a challenge that our sales and marketing team are dealing with daily. So Chris, it's a great question.
Yeah.
The problem is that we are reliant on what's going on with the levels and what's being implemented. But I think with what's going on, we're going to see a better movement. Warren, I don't know if you have any better idea.
It's so difficult to know. We're continuing to be as positive as possible, but at the end of the day, we are reliant on so many factors, not only locally but from the international market. So, our thinking is hopefully towards the end of the year, sometime close towards the end of the year, and let's hope that international flights do open, and then we can start seeing some movement. Maybe by December. I think we all need it. There's no doubt about it. We're hoping that it's not going to take too long. But in terms of domestic travel, sure, it's hard to say. But let's hope by July people can start moving around. I think there's going to be some proactive decisions made soon, because the pressure is most certainly on. No doubt about it. So
the big thing, Warren, is the flights, isn't it? So we can be open, but flights are going to be flying. So I think that's going to be key. I do see some of the airlines are firing up a little bit as well. There's a lot more movement, more talk, and that'll be a very interesting trend.
Just a quick one. I've got some questions coming through on WhatsApp. I can't read them because I'm using my phone as a camera. So just send it through on Zoom. Another question here from Adam. Just in terms of protocols going forward. I mean, I know it's early days. We've only been in this sort of period for 2 months. In terms of guest safety, sanitation, that sort of thing. What are we going to be looking at, do you think? Is there anything interesting out there that you're going to be implementing on the reserve?
So of course, I think the absolute basics, and we've been following looking at what's going on, what is happening out there. Our absolute basics is we are going through the World Health Organization's minimum requirements and their minimum standards. So actually, I met today with our general manager, Dean, to ensure that all of those protocols are in place, of which they're working on rapidly at the moment. So we need to be ensure that we're 100% up to speed by the time we launched. So we're developing documentation to be able to provide to agents and operators around the world of what our protocols are and what we're basing them on. And then, of course, we are looking at our own SOPs on the ground to ensure that they're implemented correctly. I think with certain things that are very relevant to Safari in particular are things like game drives, our game drives, and going out in the vehicles, and what are we going to do there? So, we are looking at, are we going to max our vehicles at 4 people per vehicle or 6 people per vehicle? But I think, those are experiences we wanted to create anyway, with regards to as few people on the vehicles as possible. But we're probably looking at bringing in a maximum of 6 people on a vehicle. All of our guests are going to be issued with masks. All the vehicles are going to be sanitized before people go out on drive. But, as we were getting into it, and as we've been looking at over the last couple of weeks, it impacts everything. It impacts things like your afternoon tea. It impacts, all these things that have been so traditional in safari for so long. You go out and you grab a lovely little hors d'oeuvre off the tea. Those types of things can't happen anymore. So we're taking it seriously. We're looking at developing sound structures and implementing them, and we're keeping current. So we've decided that the World Health Organization is our benchmark. And we're going to ensure that our implementation is based on that. There's so many things coming in from different angles, but you got to sort of pick one. And ours thought would be that's the most reputable. It's the one that most people are referring to, and we're developing our strategy around that. But again, the World Health Organization doesn't look at safari particular. So we are then looking at how do we with it manipulate what we perceive to be responsible in the safari environment. But there's nothing, we are ensuring that we do it.
Cool. I think, as I said, we're super positive. Just a couple of comments from some of the guys involved. The UK is opening up, a lot of people going back to work, or some people going back to work. I know my guys from Hamburg are playing golf. Lucky guys, very, very lucky. We're itching to get back onto the golf course, that's for sure. So there's definitely some movement, and I think just we're going to have to learn to get used to COVID-19. It's not going to be going away anytime soon, and it's just how we deal with it at the end of the day. And I think it's just going to be a part of our industry. I don't necessarily think it's going to stop people from traveling. We just need the powers that be to realize that we just got to get on with it. It's easier said than done, obviously, but yeah.
I do think, Warren, I think Africa's got to, looking at the trends, I think people do see Africa. I think they've seen Africa as a place that hasn't had a massive impact. I think COVID's always been that people see Africa as being relatively not as hard hit as the rest of the world. And I do think Africa and South Africa will bounce back quickly. And you know me, we're always optimistic, but I genuinely, from a tourism perspective, because how the virus has hit Africa compared to the rest of the world, I think people are going to feel a lot more comfortable coming here more quickly than say in other areas.
I agree. And I think, safari's always been popular, but I think it's going to be even more popular now because people are going to look for something where they're not mingling with the masses. And what better way to go and get some more isolation on a reserve, in a controlled environment.
And so that's what we've been doing with our new products going forward. So the new product offerings that we have, it's all about, secluded, exclusive. So we're wanting people to feel comfortable coming out to the reserve, and they can then have this sort of not social distancing, but distance from others. They're still getting the whole this safari experience. So we are modifying some of our products to allow people to be able to ensure that they are getting that type of experience, like the Eco Camp, for instance. The Pioneer Trail. One of the most magnificent things about those Pioneer Trails, and you mentioned it, is how beautiful those camps are. So we are looking, and we are putting out, and we will be putting out packages out there for people to actually take over as a family one of those camps on the Pioneer Trail, and they will base themselves there and go out, and they can walk from there with a guide, or they can go out on game drives. So we're modifying it to be able to tailor make the experience for what people are wanting. So we're very excited, and we feel very privileged that because of the multitude of products that we have on Gondwana, that we can actually really sort of provide answers for clients out there that are wanting something special, wanting something unique. To be able to take over the Pioneer Camp, 8 people, oh my gosh, what else would you want? So we're excited by that, and I think it's going to be well received. Yeah,
I agree. I think from a local perspective, there can't be many better things other than getting out to a reserve and having 4 tents, an exclusive camp to yourself with either your family or maybe 2 families. And I mean, we've been there. I've experienced it firsthand with friends. It's truly exceptional. So I think as soon as the restrictions are lifted, hopefully we can see some movement and get people out to Gondwana, because we want them to experience it firsthand for sure. So just another question, all healthy on the reserve? I gather everybody's fine. You know, everything's ticking over there.
Everybody's healthy, thank goodness.
Cool.
Yeah, the team are wonderful. I was with them today. Actually upbeat, I must say. I think the people that are on the reserve at the moment are feeling pretty privileged to be there and to experience what the reserve is like in this situation. So we had all the guides today cutting down wattle around the reserve, around the lodge. They were in high spirits. You know, so it's actually, I must say, the team, and we do have the most fantastic team. We are so privileged with the people that we have working on that property. Yeah. And yeah, we you know, we have to take the good out of this, and we're going to say that we were rebuilding Gondwana with this most incredible team, and we're focusing a lot on training going forward, and all of our staff will be beneficial to that. So cool. Yeah, the great mood, and yeah, lots of energy going on there, I can tell you that.
Cool. Mark, listen, we're coming up to an hour. I can't believe it. It goes like this. But yeah, I just want to thank you for your time. And, you know, as you know, I'm a huge fan of Gondwana. And for me, there's not much better than driving up to Gondwana with a new agent or a new client that hasn't experienced it. And I just turn over and have a look at what their facial expressions are like, because they don't know what to expect. And you heading down that dirt road to the front gate, and it's just so awesome. And, you know, I've had so many great experiences. In fact, I took one of my agents there a couple of years ago, and as we came through the front entrance, turned left to head towards Quena, and they were lying right there in the fynbos, and we were in this little rental car because we'd come from George, and at that moment I swear I'd wish I didn't get a Group B. But it's that type of experience that wow, I love taking people there, and yeah, I'm looking forward to many more trips with you and your team, from locally and obviously internationally. We've gone on so many great trips, on more sales trips, and it's going to probably have to wait until 2021, but there'll definitely be a few more on the cards. So Billy says try going through on a motorbike. Well, I think, Billy, we'll just leave that to you and Charlie and the rest of you crazies. We'll stick to our vehicles. Cool. Mark, listen, again, thank you so much, you know, to you and Wendy, Dean, and the whole team, Caroline and Priscilla in your office in Cape Town. You know, we really appreciate that you guys are there with us, and all your help behind the scenes. We're going to continue pushing your product. I can promise you that. And yeah, we'll be having some more fun in the very, very near future. So thanks again for your time, bud.
Warren, thanks. And thanks to all your partners around the world. I know they love you. We love traveling with you. You're special to them. So thanks very much. And we appreciate all the support that each one of you is providing. And may this all be over shortly, so we can be out there together again. So thanks very much. So
completely agree. Cheers, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Cheers from Cape Town.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
Ciao.
Cheers.